In this video, we're going to talk about a young man named Keith, who was a fellow foster child in the home where Liana was. Um, and she's going to explain to you what she saw. Hopefully, these testimonies are going to go forward in a federal investigation of the Maryland CPS system.
Hi everyone, thank you for watching our videos. Right now I'm going to explain a little bit about Keith Thatcher, who before that was named Keith Shoemaker, before he was adopted by Mary Thatcher and Jim Thatcher.
Who's Mary Thatcher and who's Jim Thatcher?
Mary Thatcher is the daughter of my previous foster mother, Emma Maenner, and Jim Thatcher is her husband.
Where does Emma Maenner live?
Emma Maenner lives at 1906 Clearwood Road in Parkville, Maryland, and she has been a foster mother since I believe the 90s, and she has had over like 100 foster children. Right now she's in her late 80s.
Okay. And how did you come to meet Keith?
Before I arrived at Emma Maenner's house, Keith was a foster child, also with his older brother Raymond and older sister Karen.
What kind of boy was he? How tall was he? What did he look like?
Keith was a Caucasian boy. He was about like 5'6", and he was relatively like a happy young man for the time that I had known him. I mean, he seemed a little troubled. Maybe some people would consider him like a little slow in the mind because he had some developmental issues. But generally he was a pretty happy young man.
Okay. And was Keith with some other siblings of his in the foster home, or was he by himself?
Yeah, he was with his two older siblings, and they had gotten adopted out of the foster home into Mary Thatcher's home.
Okay, and you said something about Mary Thatcher being the relative of a prior foster parent.
That's right. The first foster home that I was in was Emma Maenner, who I mentioned, and her children, she has 7 biological children who are ranging from about 50 to 60 years old, and they have adopted and fostered a lot of the children that have come through her house as well. So Keith and his 2 older siblings were one of the groups of children who got adopted into Emma Maenner's biological family.
Okay. And you said that Keith was very happy. Is there anything that he was particularly happy about in the foster home where he was?
I mean, his general character is what I was describing as happy. Okay. But what I witnessed was a lot of mistreatment that he had gone through while he was in the home of both Emma Maenner and her children. For example, he was often bullied and made fun of and discriminated against because of his looks or the way his mind had developed. And there were times where he was physically abused and taunted in front of large groups of people, large groups of relatives. And yeah.
How old were those relatives? And can you describe a particular instance where this kind of abuse happened that you saw?
Sure. Keith Thatcher, he, like I said, lived with Mary Thatcher, and they the whole family lived in Pennsylvania. So during the holidays, they would come to Emma Maenner's house where myself and my two younger brothers were. And during the holiday visits, there would be like their family gathering, and one of the gatherings was in Emma Maenner's living room, and the adults were sitting around the den area, and Keith was in the middle playing with some other younger children, and he was, he was just playing with the children, and then all of a sudden Jeff Radcliffe, who actually was the man who adopted me out of the foster home, another relative, he came behind Keith and lifted him up by his his underwear, where he was about his feet were about a foot off of the ground, and Keith was screaming and crying, and the adults started to laugh.
How often does this happen?
I mean, incidents like these would happen very often. I mean, commonly, like every time the Thatcher family would visit, and
how often was that?
For every holiday break, for example, Christmas or Easter, Thanksgiving, all of the American holidays.
And what did they call this when they were doing this to him?
I mean, it was a joke. It was a joke, but the way that Keith felt afterwards, I mean, he was often crying, and I mean, it was extremely inappropriate, because it's almost as if he was a child with not Down syndrome, but like autism. And they were treating him like an animal. And this would happen often. Like, he was often bullied because of the size of his ears, or like the way maybe you and I brush our teeth in the morning, wash our face, and so on. He, even up until his 20 years of age, he still was not in the routine of the hygiene and stuff, and they would really make fun of him, and it was like a big joke, something to always bring him down about.
Okay, so it sounds like some kind of an entertainment that was going on.
Exactly, yeah.
So it was like a family and like a plaything that they had in the family that they could just play with all the time and just joke about.
Yeah, it was entertainment.
Okay, so what is the term that they use to describe this thing that they did? Because I think I remember you saying that they had a particular term for it. What was it called? Something about underwear. The
wedgie?
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you see in movies and stuff where someone is given a wedgie, it's like when you pull their underwear up. But I've never seen someone where you pull the underwear and lift up the person by their crotch, with the underwear. That was really disturbing. And he would have like burn marks on his groin area where like the underwear would rip up and stuff. So I mean, I wouldn't say that was like just a playful, like,
he had burn marks on his scrotum and his penis.
I mean, I didn't see that, but he would like pull down his pants to show, and there was like a burn mark.
Right. Okay. So, what happened with Keith?
Well, I found out earlier this year in 2015 he was burned in a house alive. He had gotten out on his own, and he had a girlfriend, and she was pregnant. They were both pregnant together, and she also had a son, too, who was a toddler, and they were raising the child together. And they were in their house, and the whole family was burned alive. I mean, the pregnant girlfriend, the baby toddler, and Keith were all burned.
When did this happen?
I think it was either in the springtime or early summer of this year, 2015.
Okay.
And I felt very. I mean, I felt like that was really coming for Keith, like the way that he was being mistreated and treated like an animal. It makes me feel like they had possibly done that to him on purpose. I mean, I know that there was one more person in the house with them, and that person had escaped. So I feel like, I mean, I don't know if they had gotten any money for his life insurance or something. I don't know, but the the track that his life was on was very terrible. I mean, the way that he was treated throughout the foster home, throughout the adoptive home, was just terrible.
Where was this house burned down, and where did he live? In a trailer home or something?
I know at one time he lived in a trailer park. But this house that he was in, I don't know if it was a mobile home or anything like that. I think it may have been a small home in North Carolina. And it was around the Charlotte, North Carolina area.
You said something about Dillon Beach or something?
Yeah, it was like around Holden Beach. Like Holden Beach, Charlotte, North Carolina. And
how did he end up in Holden Beach, North Carolina?
well, both the Radcliffes, who had adopted me from Emma Maenner's home, and also the Thatchers, they all got a vacation spot in North Carolina. And the Thatcher family had moved down there. The Radcliffe family would take like frequent family vacations to North Carolina. And that's how I had seen him there, through visiting. And but Keith, out of the 3 Thatcher children, or the Shoemaker children, really, that's their original last name, they all were really mistreated like animals. Even the older girl, Karen, she was sexually molested during her time as a foster adoptive child.
Who did that to her?
She actually said that Jeff Radcliffe, the person who adopted me, like I said, had sexually molested her or tried to have sex with her when she was maybe 17 years old. And I mean, there's a lot that had happened with these 3 children, that just to watch as a fellow foster child was very traumatizing to me.